The reason that I asked you all to come here is because in some ways it has appeared to me as if you did not understand that actually I'm one of you. And I was. Long before I decided to run for Congress, I was with you. I was with you in the rain in Bridgeport. Do you remember that horrible day? Whoever was there? I was in West Hartford at the event up there, and then I also spoke at the Greenwich Convention. And frankly, it's the same thing. People want to know why the Tea Party movement is what it is. And I don't know why it is. I honestly never signed up any form that says, yeah, I am now a member of the Tea Party. But I knew to be there because other concerned Americans were there, and I just needed the camaraderie of other people that felt the same message or the same fear that I had. And I got to be honest with you, I'm afraid. I'm literally afraid, and I'm afraid because for one, I have a good ear for what socialism sounds like. And so my family lives in socialism, and I can tell you this. If my family could give a limb, an arm, a finger to get here, they would. They'd gladly let that stub grow back and use their other hand and take advantage of this amazing thing that we seem to have forgotten how wonderful it is. And that's America. What America guaranteed us was opportunity. And so what I think the Tea Party movement is to me, because it is what I am, is the frog. And, you know, as a God-fearing man, you always look for messages in life, right? So today's Connecticut Post, anybody see it today? Mm-hmm. Did you see it? Did you happen to notice that frogs may predict unseen dangers? Mm-hmm. Well, that's what we are. We're frogs. But it's in the experiment. Remember that classic American, I'm not sure if it was American, but it was a scientific experiment in which a frog put into a cauldron, cold cauldron will sit there, and then you can slowly turn up the heat, and the frog will not know enough to jump out before it's boiled to death. Well, we were smart enough to jump out. We're the first ones out of the boiling water. But the boiling water is still there. And I have a little graph here. And I want everyone to get one of these if you can. If there's not enough, share them for now, but we're going to have these available on my website so that it's so important to me because it represents some of the messages that I received in the last 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 years that I've been studying this wonderful country of ours. My background's in biology and biochemistry. So I'm not a typical, I guess, politician, lawyer, or someone that's speaking that's a lead from that standpoint. I'm seeking to lead because of this graph in many respects. And what John Adams said is that the moment the idea is admitted into society that property is not as sacred as the laws of God, anarchy and tyranny commence. And then he was followed by Calvin Coolidge, who said ultimately property rights and personal rights are the same thing. Our property is what gives us the ability to be free. Many of your neighbors are saying, well, what's the big deal? I don't see anything different from one day to another. You're right. From one day to another, it's very difficult to see what's going on. But take a look at this graph. It's very instructive. Look, it's kind of flat on this side. Do you notice that? Do you know what caused this graph not to be flat anymore? It was a progressive president that we had, Woodrow Wilson, that instituted the 16th Amendment in 1913. The 16th Amendment was the year that the IRS technically got its start. And the IRS basically opened up the candy store to government. And once we had a constraint on the amount of government that the federal government had available to it, the 16th Amendment unleashed amazing powers that all of us have been feeling in our gut somewhere. We're not sure where, but this is the growth. This is the gut right here. And so what does Barack Obama do? He says not only should you be worried, but you should fear for your life. And the reason we should fear for our life is what he wants to do with health care. And that's the end of this graph that goes off the chart. Okay, so at 25% or at 22% is where we exist right now. Without defense spending, that's what this means. Ex-defense means without defense. With defense, we're close to 30% of the GDP every year goes to government. And now if we add an additional 9%, which is our side of the contribution for medical care, we're close to 40%, ladies and gentlemen. 40% of everything that we make goes to the government, to the federal government. Add on top of that what the states take, and then what our cities take. Bridgeport is my town. In 2003, I wanted to save my city. And the reason is basically, again, taxes. Okay? I live up the street, 4 blocks away, in a moderate home, in a colonial. I think my house is a great house, and I live in a wonderful neighborhood, and I have a great yard, and my kids love it all. But the truth is, I pay $13,000 a year in taxes over there. On top of that, I can't use the schools. So my tuition bills have been as little as a couple of $1,000s a year, and as much as $20,000 a year when the kids got into high school. That's my reason for wanting to save a city. The state of Connecticut, so Bridgeport is a microcosm of the misery that the state of Connecticut is now providing us. And the state of Connecticut is a microcosm of the misery that Barack Obama and other liberals want to hand over to us. What this graph demonstrates is not the services that these guys want to provide for us. What that graph demonstrates are the freedoms that we've lost. We've already lost too many freedoms. It is about time today for those of us frogs that jumped out of this water, to wake up our neighbors and get our neighbors involved with us. For God's sake, it's now. I don't say this lightly. I am really afraid to my core. I'm afraid that this amazing country, the most amazing place on the face of the earth, anybody that says otherwise is highly confused. Or they don't understand the power of freedom, or they don't understand the power of free markets. If you don't understand that this country is the greatest place on the face of the earth, then you need to travel more. You need to see tyranny firsthand. And I have. My family lives in tyranny. I lived in tyranny twice. In Cuba I lived in it once, but I also lived in it here, in the United States of America, in public housing. A large segment of our population lives here in tyranny. They don't even know it. They don't understand it. Public housing is tyranny. Welfare is tyranny. And the reason that it's tyranny is that those individuals will never, ever realize the potential that they had. Never! They can't. They can't succeed in any shape, way, or form. They can't find their way to education. They can't find their way to success through hard work. And all because they made the foolish mistake once in their life of taking a government dollar. Government dollars bury people into tyranny once and for all. What Barack Obama wants to do for us is what has happened to the inner city blacks in this country, to inner city minorities in this country. That's what Barack Obama wants to do for you and for me. And I don't know why you're here. I think you're here for the same reason that I'm running. I have to tell you, I really believe that we have the same intentions. Maybe not the exact same issues. But overall, we're afraid that our country is slipping out of our hands. And that panics me to the core. There's no place. My father at least had the opportunity to run away from Cuba. As my Cuban friends would agree with me in the back, and my Cuban friends here, my new Cuban friends would agree with me. At least there was a country to run to. What happens when America goes? What they're driving us to is what Frederick Hayek warned us about. Now, I told you, I spent a good deal of time. My friends brought me books here. This is what I'm about. My background is in science, so I know how to find answers to problems. We have dramatic problems in this country that must be answered. What I can guarantee you is that government can't fix these things. We, the people, can fix them on our own because there's 320 million of us. How many bureaucrats are there dealing with these issues? We, the people, have the answers, not they. The last thing that we need is government handing us an answer. Forget it. Our neighbors are lounging in this hot tub that's going to be boiling water soon. And we must save our neighbors for their sake.